Hi everyone, welcome to the Active Knowledge series, Transition, Orienteering the Lands of Succession. Today we're going to commence unpacking this journey of transition, what some would call succession. It is a topic of strategic importance to any and every closely held business, what many will call family businesses, and we'll look at that definition in a moment. It is an essential strategic capability that must be built and developed within that business. We're going to start with just 4 introductory chapters. This is the first of the 4, which will unpack this whole context of transition and give you a sense of what it actually involves. After the 4 initial introductory chapters, we're going to dig deeper into what you'll hear as an expression of the lands of transition. The first 4 topics, today is just that overview, that introduction. What is transition? What does it involve? The second one is going to look at the guiding principles of transition. What are the signposts, the guidelines you should recognize and understand and follow to achieve a successful transition? We're also then going to look at the lands. There are 6 lands which you need to work your way through as you move towards that summit, that completion of your succession plan. We're going to look at those. And the final of the 4 will be looking at the dangers. So an opening introduction for today, then we're going to look at the guiding principles, we're going to look at the 6 lands, and we're going to look at the 12 dangers which are involved in the succession journey. So that just gives you an open context we're heading to today. The topics for today are going to be, so what is a closely held business? What is a family business? Does that apply to me? What is transition? And is transition something which I should be considering and looking at? Why is it of strategic importance, and what do you mean by it's a capability I need to develop in my business? When should I start, and what is the starting point? So that's the breadth of what we're going to seek to cover today in what would be about a 25-minute presentation. So allow me to start by just looking at definitions. What is a closely held business? What is a family business? Why? Because this will give you a sense of it applies to my business, or no, it doesn't apply to my business. Family businesses come in all shapes and sizes. There is one, however, defining characteristic, and that is what I'll term as closely held. Ownership is closely held by one or more individuals. It can be a family business in the context that they all belong to one family. It can be a family business in the context that's gone over several generations and there's several families in there and it's connected. But it can also be a partnership where you have a couple of families come together and start a business, and that business grows. Shares can be traded publicly. They can be on a listed stock exchange. And when you trace through the shareholding, you would find that there is a controlling interest held typically by a family group. It is therefore what I would call a family business closely held, and transition applies. It can be local, it can be national, it can be global, it can be worth only a few $100,000, it can be worth many billions of dollars. And there are family businesses closely held which apply at both ends. It can be newly born, first generation, or could have been around for many generations and passed through many generations. All of these, that context, that scope, that breadth, are what I call family businesses, and to which transition is of strategic importance and a strategic capability. And we'll talk about why. Before we get into the why, let's just talk about transition and what transition actually is. Transition is a process. It's a process which will enable the compounding of wealth from generation to generation while ensuring family unity, individual growth, and a sense of contribution. Key words: enabling, compounding of wealth, a building of what is already there, across generations from one leadership team to another leadership team, while ensuring unity, individual growth, and contribution, a sense of contribution. Why are unity, growth, and contribution important? Because they will underpin the continuity of the business and the strength in the family. If they are not present, your transition process will falter, if not in this generation, in the next generation. So transition is about building wealth across generations and bringing the family together as a strong unit which support that. Let's go back now and answer that question, why is it of strategic importance? And I'll just open this doorway and just begin to make a few initial comments. I believe transition is the most important journey you'll undertake in your business. It will be the most significant capital transaction which you will take. It will write the history of your business and set the foundations for your legacy. Transition is an opportunity to set that history and that legacy in its foundation. It's not about rewriting it, it's about ensuring it heads in the right direction. The language of journey, and you'll see also I use the language of traveller, are apt because of the way in which you need to orienteer your way through to the summit. And you'll hear me also saying this language of orienteering. It's not new. It is a well-worn path. Many families have walked this path of transition, and there are many significant family businesses worth billions of dollars operating across many countries which have built the business through this process of transition, as they've just compounded on what had been built before, compounded on what has been built before, compounded on what has been built before. Every family is different, every culture is different. But this journey of transition is the same for all of them. It doesn't matter whether you're thinking about selling the business, breaking the business up, closing down some areas, keeping some other areas, or just transitioning across that generational line. Transition will support those outcomes. And the language of that my family is different and my culture is different is true, but does not apply in transition because the challenges you will need to go through will be the same. So being able to learn from those which have gone before you and to take their knowledge and their experiences on board is vital. This is what this series is about. This active knowledge series is helping you to understand and to take on board their learnings and their knowledge. So why is it important? Apart from what I've just said, that context, it is about growing, maximising and future-proofing the capital value of your business, this compounding of wealth concept. It will allow you to maintain an active involvement in the business really as long as you want, at the level you want. It will allow you to identify, grow, build and invest in the new leadership team which will take the business forward from you. It will ensure there's enough cash around, enough capital around for your generation, that which may be stepping away, for the new generation coming in and for the business. It will provide for your family and all the families who are living off that business, excuse that expression. To ensure wealth is not lost as it goes to the next generations, but provides the best platform for it to be built and compounded on. It will support and underpin unity, fairness and opportunity within your family, which are vital for that compounding of wealth. Now, as I said, these are outcomes which can be achieved no matter what your initial objectives are. Sell, retain, merge, split, whatever that may be. Strategic importance, but a strategic capability. You need to understand how to do transition. There is a skill, there is an art. May I just spend a moment and give you some of my background so you understand the perspective which I bring to transition, succession and the way in which I look at it. Chartered accountant by profession, however, postgraduate studies, masters by research in organisational competitiveness and a PhD in strategy. Consulting for many years, ran a consulting group for many years. During that task, during that role, became involved, actually seeded and started and led a research project on what are the success strategies, the barriers, the challenges in a family business succession process, in the context of the way I define family businesses. I was a joint chief investigator, partnered with Swinburne University, a professor out of the School of Entrepreneurship, Graduate School of Entrepreneurship. It was partially funded by the Australian Research Council, which means it was a well-structured and run research project. 56 countries, 2,500 people, and 9 languages. That was the research project. So the learnings from that, combined with my learnings from my postgraduate studies and my 40-odd years of consulting and working with family businesses, is what I'm bringing to the table and the way I'm viewing transition. It's interesting because one of the key things which came out of that research study, we asked the question, if you had your time again, what would you do? What would you do differently? And one of the resounding, most prominent messages was, if I had my time again, I would start earlier. If I had my time again, I would start earlier. So when do you start the transition process? As soon as you can. It's a strategic capability. How soon could you start it? The day you start your business. Because the way you structure your business, the skills you build in your business will impact your transition or your succession process. Often, succession is thought about at the very end of someone's business life when they begin to say, I think I need to step away from my business. At that stage, honestly, it's too late. A succession plan can be pulled together in 6 to 12 months. It requires everyone to come together and work together, but the work to build the business and the family to allow that to occur smoothly starts and should start much earlier. There's many things which can happen, which can impact the succession process, which are unexpected. Death, illness, injury, rapidly changing market conditions, complex and messy corporate structures which have been built for tax or commercial purposes, which are simply not suitable for transition and have got to be broken apart. Rushed planning at the end can diminish wealth very quickly. Family disputes, divorces, break up of partners, either in relationships or just in the business, all of these can impact your ability to do an effective succession process. The earlier you start, the cleaner it will be. Coming up on the screen now, you'll see there's a map. This is a topographical guide to succession. These are the lands you're going to journey through. That is the summit you're heading through. There is a progression from the start to the summit. There is a way you progress through the lands. In each land, there are tasks to be completed before you move to the next land. There are principles to be followed and there are dangers to be avoided. It is a map of the journey you need to take. The guiding principles will help you reach the summit if you follow them well. So as you think about transition, think about the journey, think about this map. It is an excellent tool for bringing generations together to understand what this transition succession process looks like. And we'll spend a lot of time through the sessions we're going to do in this series looking at this map and unpacking it and pulling it apart and helping you understand the journey. The journeys of 6 lands: goals, family, legacy, wealth, business and decisions. It starts before you enter the lands. There are 9 guiding principles which you need to recognize and follow, and there are 12 dangers which you must avoid. Think of the language of orienteering your way through the lands to the summit you're seeking to reach, the summit being the successful conclusion of your succession process. What does that journey look like? It starts with preparation, as in any journey. And just think, this is the most important capital transaction you are going to undertake in your business life. Preparation will be important. So it starts with that preparation. It then walks into the establishing the goals. What are we actually seeking to achieve in the summit? Let's try and get some clarity around that. It then steps into building family unity and building the communications which will allow the family to get together and to invest in and to understand the succession process and support it. There will be a family charter. There will be a family council. It's a discussion around legacy and what that looks like. It is a large discussion and analysis around wealth. Where does wealth actually exist? What are the principles for allocating that wealth? And then what the dollars are if something happens down the path. Principles first. It's about developing a wealth map, which becomes a task of bringing together all the things which involve your business, in the business and private investments, so we actually understand what the wealth looks like, where it actually resides, and verifying all of that, pulling the documentation together. Wealth often resides very strongly within the business, so the land of business is about saying, what are our capital value drivers? What does our future strategy look like? What should it look like? What is the leadership team we need to bring together to make that happen? And then you step into this final land of decision making where we draw all that together. We say, these were the goals. These are the facts of the matter. What are the options we've got? Which is the option which is going to give us the best outcome? Now, what does that mean? It's a journey you work your way through. What's your first task? Well, there is preparation, which we'll look at in a moment, but honestly, I believe the first task is to find your guide, someone who will be your independent succession advisor. it is unlikely there's someone who's sitting at the table with you now. Succession is a specific skill, it's a specific expertise, it requires experience, it requires a certain lens. They must be professional, but importantly, they must be independent. Because that independence of being able to sit within the family group and to hear everyone and to bring all the views to the table and present them to the incumbents, to that managing family at the present time, and to walk them through that is important. Your existing advisors, your taxation, your legal advisors, your accountants will all be at the table supporting the independent succession advisor, but that independent succession advisor is the one who understands the journey and will lead that team through the journey. They also don't have any baggage, excuse that expression. They're not bringing any history to the table in the sense of, but I advised you to do this many years ago and I thought it was a good decision. There's none of that there. And that's not discrediting your existing advisors anyway, it's just a reality check. But the other aspect is, as you're seeking to draw that new leadership team together, the family together, and to journey forward, it's important that they see the guide is independent and carries no bias or any history associated with what has been done, so they can create that new future. There's another aspect, I think, which is important, which again came out of the research which was done, and it's a family issue, it's a cultural issue. And what I found quite often is that the choice of independent succession advisor outside the existing advisor group and outside the existing culture and family connections has been quite important to the family. Because there'll be issues to be spoken about, there'll be things to be talked about, there'll be matters to be discussed and resolved, which the family do not want to be known within their circle. They're private. And therefore that independence allows that to basically be discussed and for a new perspective to be brought to the table to allow that possibly to be resolved and taken forward. Someone who you can trust, someone who you can work with, someone who understands succession, someone who has got a plan, a process which you can follow becomes quite important. What will you discuss with the succession advisor? Well, you start off talking about basically the goals you think you want to achieve. Where do you want to take this succession process to? What are your goals? What do you think are the goals of the children? And you begin to unpack that and draw that together. They set up the plan which they believe you need to follow through based upon the structure of your businesses and the dynamics within your family and what you think your choices will be. Retain, transfer, sell, etc. They'll help you set the goals and the outcomes. They'll build the facts upon which you're going to rely. They'll create the options for you. They'll put forward what they believe is the appropriate alternative and create the action plan which goes with that. They will be the one who I think creates the communication plan and builds a lot of harmony within the family because they are seen as being independent and is listening to everyone and bringing all their views to the table. So your first task is to basically find that succession advisor, to have those initial discussions, to appoint them and begin to walk forward. What you also need to do is to gather facts and information. So up on the screen now, it's just a very simple checklist of the types of things you're going to need to bring together, which need to be located, which can sound easy, but in many cases are not that easy to find and to gather, especially if the business has been around for many years. These need to be ticked off and checked because your wealth map will be built upon these as the foundation is beginning to go forward, and you want to make sure that what you thought was where and who you thought owned something does in actual fact be true. And as your structure becomes more complex, the complexity of this list obviously grows, but it just gives you a snapshot of the sorts of things which you're going to begin to gather at that start point before you step into the journeys. So what's the journey? Succession planning transition represents the capping off of your career and the accumulation of your years of effort. It will be influential in determining the future prosperity and well-being of yourself, your family, your business, its employees, suppliers, customers, the whole lot. You want to commit to the succession process early. You want to follow it through until its conclusion. You need to see it as a significant capital and important and strategic project to make sure the resources are put behind it and the effort is put behind it and it works. It just flows through. Often succession is something which dribbles and dies. It's something which a family knows has got to be addressed, but they never address it. It gets spoken about at annual family gatherings when people come together. Everyone promises to do something and nothing happens. And the years go by, and the impact of succession not being planned begins to drag down the value and the unity within the family. Your independent succession advisor is the person who drops in the middle of that and brings it all together and drives that process forward. Transition. It is a journey, it is a process to enable the compounding of wealth from generation to generation and ensuring unity, individual growth and contribution, which allows the family to get stronger as it goes across the generations. Strategic importance, strategic capability. You'll see coming up on the next couple of slides an email address. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'll do my best to respond to you as quickly as I can. You'll also see some resources coming up there which you can tap into, which will help you again dig into this journey of transition. I thank you for your time. I thank you for listening to this first of the 4 introductory presentations, and I hope to see you back at the others. Thank you very much.